because a lot of times we do contribute to our own suffering, whether it's entertaining relationships that we know are unhealthy for us, being stuck in the people pleasing. And so it's like taking that accountability piece and also saying you did the best with what you could at the time. But when you know better, you do better. So when you come into a new awareness and you find yourself saying, okay, I'm aware that I have a tendency to nurture this toxic relationship, now you have the power to do something about it. And you can decide what that is, whether it's having a conversation, whether it's just deciding, you know what, I don't need to have a conversation. I'm just done. Like if the relationship is really that toxic, that unhealthy, and the person that you have in mind is not responsible or reasonable or open to making the changes, then you have every right to decide for yourself that you're no longer going to be participating in it. You don't. I mean, obviously, nobody likes for things to end in a shitty way, in an unbroken way. And that's one thing that we also have to remember is just because something ends a certain way right now doesn't mean it'll be that way forever.
Correct.
Sometimes it might, you know, but time has a way of airing out wounds and giving people an opportunity to refresh their perspective to come back together. If that's what's meant to happen. You know, sometimes what's meant to happen is you're meant to have that fallout and move on with your life.
Yeah.
So discernment is your friend. Time is your friend. Patience is your friend.
Patience is a friend.
Really is.
And so I love that you said that. Like sometimes you can just leave it alone, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are afraid to leave a situation alone.
Oh yeah.
Because they feel like, no, I have to communicate. But if you know that person is combative, they're argumentative, you can write a note. You don't have to necessarily have a kumbaya, let's go to coffee, have coffee and tea moment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No communication is also communication.
Correct.
And sometimes you got to do what you got to do to protect your peace, right? And that other person also has the ability to make choices. So if you stop interacting with this person, they have the option to reflect on that. Why did so-and-so quit hanging out with me, reaching out to me, talking to me? And some people will go there and reflect on it. Some people will reach out and try to say, hey, what's going on? And others will just be like, whatever. You know, and that's how you just take it for what it's worth. It might sting because sometimes we go into these situations saying, I'm just going to go on ahead and leave so-and-so alone. But then when they don't respond the way that we feel that they should respond, then we get all up in our feelings again and create something out of nothing.
Right.
So be mindful of the expectations that you're having of this other person. What are you wanting from them? What is the goal of you presenting this information to them or choosing not to? Because if you're doing things for the sake of getting a certain response out of someone else, then you're not really doing it for you.
And you really need to sit back and ask yourself, why?
And run it through your head. This is a catch-22 because you know, people that struggle with like overthinking, ruminating, intrusive thoughts, sometimes it will be like, okay, I want to run the scenario through my head, but how do I not let it get out of control, right? So giving yourself permission to control what you can control, which is yourself. How will I feel if I go have this conversation? How will I feel if I stop talking to this person? How will I feel if I choose XYZ? And your mind will naturally want to try to predict how the other person will respond or say. And I mean, obviously, when you know someone, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to completely discredit yourself, but give yourself space to say, okay, if this person responds either the way that I think they will or differently, how am I going to respond to that? And don't give yourself permission to run a whole bunch of scenarios. Just say, if they respond differently than what I think they're going to respond like, how do I think I'm going to respond? What comes up in your body? Because sometimes even just giving yourself permission to run through things, you can feel the emotions coming up.
Yep.
Whether it's, you know, maybe your cheeks get hot, maybe your palms get sweaty, maybe your heart starts to race, maybe you start to struggle to breathe, maybe you start to feel overwhelmed or scared. All of that is a signal, is a sign. Listen to it.
Listen to your body.
Yeah.
Your body is always talking.
It is. It is. Even when it's quiet, that's a form of communication.
That part.
So, not rushing into a decision. Don't make permanent decisions based off of temporary feelings.
Ooh, that was good. Thank you for that blessing. That was a blessing.
That's a hard one.
It is. Because I know that there are times where I'm running scenarios through my head. And if I'm honest, let's be vulnerable for a moment. I'm usually putting myself as the victim.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a victimhood. I have to tell myself, get out of victim mode. No, let's be a grown up about this. Let's do some real,
Okay.
some real self-reflection. It's part of it, but you're not the victim in this situation. Let's look at another scenario where, one, you're able to tell your truth unapologetically and be okay in that space.
Right.
Telling somebody in this business, because it's a business, I can no longer service you. That's a hard thing to tell somebody.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's very hard to be able to say, even as a therapist, like, I've helped you as far as I can.
Yeah.
It's time for you to either find someone that has a better skill set to get you on that next part of your journey, or maybe you're ready to go spread your wings on your own for a little bit. And it's very, very hard to do that. Or sometimes it's, oh, your child hit me, we don't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're going to have to figure out some other solutions. But here's the thing is that, once again, it's not always going to feel good for you to do it.
No, it's not.
So it's like, just because you have to make that decision doesn't mean that you're enjoying having to do it.
Right.
And giving yourself grace in that. It's a hard thing to do, no matter what the reason. Whether you care for the person or you're like, please get the hell on out of here.
Yeah.
It still takes some kind of energy is attached to the outcome or the conversation at the very least. So it's like, okay, mentally preparing myself for a hard conversation. And if we can't control when that conversation has to be had, okay, what can I do for myself before and after to help make sure that it goes as well as it possibly can?
Yeah. Yeah. I always think it's also a telltale sign. Like when you start feeling that anxiety, that shortness of breath, because you have to have a hard conversation with someone, that's an indicator to me. This person has entirely too much power in my life.
Right.
For me, it is like, oh, wait a minute, I've been giving away my power. So one of the things I always tell the girls is like, check yourself, man. Do not give anybody your power.
Right.
Be in control over your life and what you want, what you're expecting out of it, because they don't deserve to have that power. It's easier said than done, but it's work. It's still work, right?
Right, absolutely.
I love that. Good stuff.
Isn't it though?